Good evening, my dear friends. It's a joy to see you all again. How many of you blame others for your troubles? A harsh boss, a cold spouse, a difficult neighbor? I see some hands going up. Well, tonight, I'm going to show you that they are but mirrors of your own imagining. Your relationships reflect what you hold within. We've talked about imagination creating reality, assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, living in a new state of consciousness, feeling the reality of your desires, resting in that feeling, revising the past, and speaking words of power. But tonight, I want to talk about the people in your life, your loved ones, your enemies, your acquaintances. Every relationship you have is a reflection of your inner state. The Bible tells us, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." But I say to you, it's deeper than that. It's imagine for others as you would have them imagine for you. What do I mean by this? I mean that everyone in your life is playing a role cast by your own consciousness. The way you see them, the way you feel about them, the assumptions you hold about them, that's what they reflect back to you. If you see someone as cruel, they'll act cruelly toward you. If you see someone as loving, they'll show you love. The world is a mirror, and the people in it are reflecting your own beliefs back to you. Let me tell you a story to make this clear. I once knew a man whose wife seemed to nag him endlessly. He'd come home from work, and she'd start in. Nothing he did was good enough. Everything was a complaint. He said to me, "Neville, I can't take it anymore. She's always on my case." I asked him, "How do you see her?" He said, "What do you mean?" "She's a nag. That's how I see her." I told him, "That's your mistake. You're imagining her as a nag, and she's playing the role you've given her. Change your concept of her." I told him to start imagining her differently, to imagine coming home to a warm smile, to kind words, to a feeling of peace between them. I told him to hear her say, "I'm so glad you're home," to feel her embrace, to feel the love they once shared, not as a wish, but as though it were real now. At first he resisted. He said, "But Neville, that's not how she is." I said, "It doesn't matter how she is in the outer world right now. Change her in your inner world, and the outer must follow." So he tried it. Night after night, he imagined coming home to a loving wife. He felt the reality of it, the warmth, the kindness, the harmony. And within 2 weeks, something shifted. She started greeting him with a smile. The complaints lessened. One evening she even said, "I'm so glad you're home," just as he had imagined. Why? Because he changed his concept of her in his imagination. He stopped seeing her as a nag and started seeing her as a loving partner, and she reflected that back to him. Do you see what I'm saying? Everyone in your life is you pushed out. They're reflecting your own state of consciousness, your own assumptions about them. If you want to change your relationships, don't try to change the other person directly. Change your concept of them. Imagine them as you wish them to be. Feel the reality of that new relationship. The Bible says, "Love your neighbor as yourself." But I say to you, imagine lovingly for your neighbor, and they will reflect that love back to you. Let me give you another example. A woman once came to me who was struggling with her boss. She said he was cold, critical, always finding fault with her work. She dreaded going to the office. I told her, "He's reflecting what you believe about him. Change your belief." I told her to imagine her boss praising her, to hear him say, "You've done a wonderful job," to feel his respect and appreciation. I told her to feel the relief of working in a harmonious environment, not as a hope, but as though it were true now. She did as I suggested. She started imagining her boss as kind and supportive. She'd hear his praise in her mind, feel the gratitude of a job well done. And within a month, things began to shift. He started giving her compliments on her work. One day, he called her into his office and said, "I've noticed how hard you've been working. Keep it up." It wasn't a dramatic change overnight, but it was a start. Why? Because she changed her concept of him in her imagination, and he began to reflect that new concept. Your relationships are mirrors, my friends. They show you what you're holding within. If someone in your life is troubling you, don't blame them. Look within. Ask yourself, what am I assuming about this person? What role have I cast them in? And then change the script. Imagine them as you wish them to be. Feel the reality of that new relationship. Don't argue with the outer world. Just imagine the end and let the mirror reflect it back. This doesn't mean you ignore bad behavior or let people walk all over you. If action is needed in the outer world, take it. But first, change the inner picture. When you imagine lovingly for others, you're not just changing them. You're changing yourself. You're stepping into a state of love, of harmony, of peace. And from that state, the world can't help but reflect beauty back to you. Now, how do you apply this in your own life? It's simple, but it takes commitment. Here's what I want you to do tonight. Think of someone in your life you're struggling with. It could be a spouse, a friend, a co-worker, a family member, anyone where the relationship feels strained. Choose one person. Now imagine them as you wish them to be. If they've been cold, imagine them warm. If they've been critical, imagine them supportive. If they've been distant, imagine them close. Build a scene in your mind, a moment that implies the relationship is healed. Maybe it's them smiling at you, saying kind words. Maybe it's a shared laugh, a warm embrace. Whatever it is, make it vivid. Hear their words, see their expression, feel the connection between you. Feel the reality of it, the joy of it. And then dwell in that scene every night. Feel it as real before you go to sleep. Don't worry about how it will happen. Just imagine the end. When you interact with them in the outer world, hold that inner picture in your heart. Don't argue with what you see. Just keep imagining what you desire. The more you do this, the more they'll begin to reflect your new concept of them. This takes faith, my friends. The outer world might not change overnight, but hold fast to your imaginal act. Imagine lovingly for others, and they must reflect that love back. It's the law of the mirror. Change your inner state, and the outer must follow. Go home tonight and choose your person. Imagine them as you wish them to be. Feel the reality of that new relationship and hold it in your heart. When we meet again, I want to hear how your relationships have shifted. I want to hear how the mirror of life has shown you a new reflection. Until then, my dear ones, see the divine in all. Imagine lovingly, and the world will love you back. Good night.